Don't worry about it. What is going on, Joe? We just watched
The McLaren.
the the McLaren unveiling. Actually, let me just bring it up on screen so
Yeah.
people can see what we're talking about. But what did you think?
I like it. I like the last this season's livery a lot more than last season.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of better looking car. I gotta
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
last
But
season's livery was boring.
one thing that I can't get it over with is how big the Chrome logo is on the car.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And there's so many,
Yeah.
like there are these two over here by the driver, big old chrome
Yep.
here,
And even on the
like
wheel.
yeah, on the wheel, like geez, like how much money did Google give them for God's sakes? Like it's crazy.
But overall the car looks good. The shape of the car looks a lot looks different on the
Yeah, it
side pod,
does.
especially on the side pod, and
And
also
the engine
yeah,
cover and the rear section for sure.
yeah, yeah. I like it. I don't have. I mean, like the side pod. If you look at the front,
Yeah, let's go back.
yeah, that looks aggressive. I gotta tell
Yeah,
that
it does.
that looks really aggressive.
No, it's definitely, I mean, from what I can see, it looks like a nice evolution. We have, we have a lot of consistency between what we're seeing from like the cars,
Yeah,
across the board. We have these new four element, front wings.
yeah.
We have some
I think
sculpting
that's
of the side
because
pods.
that's the
Mhm.
regulation change, right?
Yeah, mm, agreed.
Yeah.
We have also like some sculpting of the area that goes over the rear axle and the
Yeah,
engine covers
yeah,
to do a little bit more air control and to make the cars a little bit more slippery through the air.
yeah.
Uh, we're seeing these little fins or like finlets, crop
Yep,
up over the
yep,
rear,
yep.
right in front of the axles, or the rear axle, I should say, in particular.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it looks pretty consistent, and also, of course, a raising of the nose a bit.
yeah.
You know,
And the
um,
shape of that nose, it's very consistent throughout the grid
yeah, right.
so far. Yeah,
That was one of the things that I noticed, like right away when they showed the car. Like, I'm like, dude, that front wing could almost be exchanged with several other cars.
yeah. Or maybe they just use the same prototype and then everybody just throw it on the livery.
Oh God. That'd be hilarious. That'd be so hilarious.
Because everybody's doing the same thing, doesn't want to reveal the car earlier than anybody.
Yeah, right? Like, geez.
Oh my god.
No, it's true though. I mean, like, it's a lot of them are looking fairly similar. I
Yeah,
do
so
wish we had a bit more of a straight view to the rear here,
yeah.
but instead we got pictures of Piastri and Norris.
Yep.
But it definitely looks like there's been some sculpting over the rear axle and the engine covers. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean it looks like what was the last one that we've seen? I mean me and um
the last one that we did the live over was the Alfa Romeo.
yeah, it looks like the Alfa Romeo in the back.
A bit, a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So what I'm
Hmm.
like, wait, did they just use the prototype car that if I provide and then just throw it on delivery and call it a day
Yeah,
from now?
dude. Yeah. I do have to say it's very clear that a lot of the teams are concerned about weight when
Yeah,
you look at them with their extensive use of just raw carbon fiber as like a black visual element.
yeah,
And this is really no different than who did we watch? Williams,
Williams
right?
and Williams.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Williams did the same thing where they went with a predominantly like raw carbon fiber as black
and
accent. You
also Alfa
know,
Romeo, like half of the car is
that's
black.
true. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. I didn't think about that. You're
yeah,
right.
yeah. Half of the car is black and red.
Which is really funny. We're getting to that point where like weight savings is coming down to a substantial amount of
Yeah,
carbon fiber and a huge reduction in just paint.
yeah. I mean, paint is heavy. Like
It's true.
it's very heavy for paint. So
I don't
it's
know, man. Like it's kind of funny. Like you'd think maybe they'd vinyl wrap. I mean,
I mean, some of them is it might be a vinyl wrap, but I don't know if
yeah,
it's I don't know how much the paint is involved in the look of the car.
yeah. I mean, I
But
would think that they would use whatever they can to save weight. Like
yeah,
realistically speaking.
basically.
But
No,
it's I gotta say it's so much better looking
that last
livery
year.
wise
Yeah,
than last year. Yeah,
yeah,
last
yeah, yeah.
year's car was so bland. Oh my god! Like I hated like. Here's the thing: I'm not a big fan of orange, just visually, right?
Yeah,
Regardless of like team colors,
yeah.
right? But their car was just so orange last
Yep,
season, and they
yep.
didn't bring this sky blue in nearly as much. And this is just looking so much better balanced, visually
It
than
looks good as a package. Like the whole
yeah,
car looks good as a package.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
I agree. I'm really curious to see how it's going to do in testing. It clearly has like the slightest amount of rake to it,
mhm. I mean,
with the rear
yeah.
of the
One
underside being just a touch higher.
one thing I can say that it's very different from others. It's the underbody of
Hmm.
the side of that underbody. It has that because I know for other teams they have that wave form of that
Yeah,
chassis, but on this it's different. So
yeah,
that gives us a hint. It might not be a prototype car.
yeah. It's the floor
Yeah, the
definitely
floor
looks a bit different than
different.
some of the
Yeah,
other floors we've been seeing,
yeah,
without question. And also the front wing, um here the way it's
it's different.
like yeah, the way it's
Yeah,
waving and transitioning into the vertical element
yep,
is definitely very different than any of the other teams that we've seen thus far,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know
But
so
my favorite part of the car is actually the side pod. It
yeah.
looks it looks amazingly aggressive.
Well, I think what's doing that is this ever so
Yeah,
slight divot that they
yep,
have right here.
yeah, yeah.
When all the other teams are going very straight with
Straight
their
and
side pod,
rounded.
like
Yeah,
right,
they went.
they're doing some interesting sculptural things
Yeah.
for
Now
airflow.
it's just the performance of the car, how big
Yeah,
is the difference in terms of
yeah,
speed and downforce and air regulations.
yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely. And I think that's really going to be such a big factor, I think, this season, because now we've already had like an entire year's worth of data points
yeah,
on the new formula,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
we can start to see some chassis variation going forward between the different cars
yeah,
with these releases.
yeah.
I mean, they're trying to keep as much kind of like tight as possible, like play their cards close to the vest.
Mm,
But at the same time, some of these reveals are showing that there's some definite extensive revisions happening,
right,
like to each of the teams.
right.
So I'm very interested to see how things are going to go with
Mhm.
testing. Like you can really see they've almost adopted a little bit of the Ferrari,
Yeah, I was gonna
hot
say
tub side pod
it's
design here.
very similar. I mean, I'm pretty sure like a lot of teams are gonna like I wouldn't say copy, but take on the point of what Ferrari and Red Bull are
Hmm.
doing because they are the fastest car around the
Yeah,
grid
yeah, and
last
it's definitely
season.
not just the engines.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
definitely part of the whole aero
yeah,
package.
yeah, yeah,
So it's interesting because from the top down, this rear section looks very similar to what McLaren had before, but
right.
when you see it from like the side view, it definitely feels a lot more sculpted,
Yeah,
around the rear
yeah,
axle
yeah.
than before. So um, I'm
I'm,
definitely
I,
very
yeah,
interested in seeing how this car performs.
and again, I'm pretty sure things are gonna change throughout the season. So we'll see how the car develop in each team throughout the season.
Yeah, this is definitely this is starting to get me a little excited,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're starting to see enough variation in the
Variation.
design philosophies,
Yeah, yeah. Like
but
we're
enough
starting
also
to see.
similarities.
Yeah, we're starting to see the development of between each team on this new formula and
Hmm.
and how how teams can come up with new designs and evolution design on this formula, which is
Yeah,
quite exciting.
yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I mean, I don't know. The even like there looks to be a difference between their rear wing philosophy and that of some of the other teams as well.
Hmm.
Their shaping and the vertical element for DRS and stuff like that seems to be ever so slightly different than what we've been seeing from like Alfa Romeo, Red Bull. I mean, we barely got to see Red Bull's car, for God's sakes. That stupid presentation.
One thing that I wanted
Mm.
to actually see during the testing and the car, the race, is the brake, the wheel cover.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like how other teams can, what's the variation between the design and between the teams
Mm.
on the wheel cover? Because brake is very important for
Oh yeah,
race.
yeah,
So if you don't want to remember last season, Williams Williams has their brake uh destroy and fire. There's a fire on the grid.
yeah,
So I want to see how teams can develop the wheel cover and integrate it into the car so that the air can go through um you know that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this, by the way, is what I was talking about with the rear wing. You see how if you look at like where the dark trace element is in the rear wing here is actually extending further back
Hmm.
beyond
Hmm.
the rear of that like upward swooping element,
Yeah.
right? And that seems to be one of the few breaks that I've seen between the different cars. This seems to be unique to me,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
remember seeing that with other cars. I could be wrong. I mean, for
And
us,
also
it's
and also
relatively early in the morning, so my
yeah,
brain is
might
not
not be
full
working
speed.
properly.
Yeah. It's very possible.
Yeah, and also I think the rear wing.
Hmm.
This is the only one that I see is a straight rear wing on the top with
Yeah.
that dark trace. I don't remember
Yeah.
what others were are doing, but I remember one of the team has that dip in the middle,
Right.
in that T, and then the dark trace in the middle.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
seemed to have a little bit more
yeah,
sculpting, whereas this
yeah.
feels more like just straight horizontal,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
I don't know if this is, but now we need to see, put them side by side. to see the difference in between the heights of the rear wing, if it's high
Yeah,
downforce or low downforce or that kind of stuff.
exactly. Now we didn't do a live for the AlphaTauri,
AlphaTauri.
mostly because both of us had a fairly busy weekend. So why don't we just take a look at it now? You
Yeah.
know, now
First
first
things,
impressions.
impressions. This is a Haas.
Dang, that's rough, dude.
Oh, I mean,
No,
for me,
honestly, my first impression is I actually really like it, but not
uh-huh,
for the reasons that people are gonna think.
uh-huh.
Um, I used to play a racing game on Sony PlayStation called Wipeout,
Mm.
and it's like my all-time favorite game of all games ever in history. Actually, I have like a little
Yeah,
model here of one of the Wipeout racers
uh-huh.
from the team Piranha, and like or not Piranha, AG Systems. That's right. It was AG Systems racer. This livery reminds me
Yeah,
of Wipeout.
a little bit. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, a little bit.
like big blocks. Yeah, here by the way is that little
Yep.
dip that you were talking
Yeah,
about in the rear wing.
yeah.
But yeah, just I at least
And
at
see,
first looks,
for the
this
side
this
part
makes
is
me feel like Wipeout.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you look at the side part, it's so different than the McLaren,
Yeah, it's more of just
and
a
it's
straight
more
sort of
yeah, and
oval.
it's more thin
Yes.
in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of
yeah.
the intake metaphor.
Absolutely. Even the nose down here is shaped differently.
Yeah,
We're getting more of it coming to like a fine point than
yeah.
like a broad nose,
And I'm pretty
you
sure
know?
that's because the aerodynamic purpose. Because if you have a
Mhm.
opener higher um nose, the air can go through on the bottom of that nose.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And in
Let's
terms of and when the
let's look.
air
Yeah,
goes
there
on
we
the
can see the
yeah, there you
nose.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if the air can go through conveniently, then
Mhm.
the what is that called? The ground effect can be effective on the bottom of the car.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at how different their front wing solution
Mhm.
is versus the McLaren. Let's go back
Yeah, if
to
yeah, the
the
top.
yeah,
Yeah,
look
there you
at
go.
how wavy the
Mm.
this like fourth element of the wing is and how it like converges to the
And
vertical
also
element here.
for the McLaren on the
Yeah.
side of that front wing, it's
Yeah.
like it's rounded on the bottom,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
goes a little bit straight and then come back down. But
Mhm.
for the AlphaTauri, it's more smooth.
Yeah, it is.
So I don't know
It's
how much of an effect the aerodynamic is, but like we saying before, it's very exciting to see different variations of different
yeah.
teams finally.
And it also feels like this is taking up more like surface area,
Mhm.
whereas like this feels a little bit slimmer,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It could just be the camera angle,
It could
right?
be.
Because the
It could
camera
be.
angles are different, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But it does feel like the AlphaTauri one is just much broader,
Mhm.
going up the nose. So I don't know what's also a little I will say a little frustrating here is the nature of the photograph. They've really obscured what
Mhm.
they're doing here below the side pods.
Yeah.
They've
I
really
can't.
hidden it from us.
I can't see any
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
picture. But I gotta say, like I remember I told you guys before. I like AlphaTauri's logo, and I like the whole
Mhm.
package of AlphaTauri's brand. But that red is just throwing off.
It's funny, it's not you're not the only one. One of the people in the comments, uh, Dalisu, I'm totally sorry if I mispronounced your name. He said the same thing. He said they could tone down the red, that
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
like
because
visually a little
because
too intense.
but I think I know why the race there because of the partnership. Orion,
Yeah.
is it called or the OR? I
Or
don't know.
Orland.
Orland. I think it because their brand image is red, so they need to put red in the car. But
Yeah.
they could have toned down. They could have made the red appear somewhere, like on top of the camera or something. But
Yeah.
that red, man, they just it's too
I mean, if
much.
you think about it, the blue is so dark
Yeah, and the
that
red
the
is so
red is
bright.
really boom, like
It's
in
like
your face.
contrasty, like very
Yeah.
contrasty. But like
See,
I like the logo. I like the the what's that called? Brand identity for AlphaTauri.
yeah. Yeah.
It's just that red. It's throwing me off a little bit.
I wish it could have been a little more smoothly
It's
integrated.
yeah,
It didn't need
not
to
like
just be
car
like
age.
rectangular
Yeah,
bars.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Or
Right.
or
Like,
they can even or what they can do is they can even do what we call in design philosophy called cross brand.
yeah.
Like they can even put the red in AlphaTauri's bull logo
Thank you. Right.
so that it can kind of merge uh freely.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's definitely a little too stark. Like, but for me, for example, in like the wheel covers, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, wheel
You know
cover
what
doesn't bother me.
actually what really does bother me is these weird, like,
Yeah, yeah,
aggressive lines here.
yeah.
Like, I see the relationship to what they've done visually, like right
Mhm.
here.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but man, like, I don't know, something okay, back when I was a kid, there was a toy truck that you could buy where the wheels would sprout these like little claws that would allow it to like get over like rocky surfaces,
Ah, ah,
right?
ah, 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 ah,
And
uh-huh,
this reminds me of that. It feels like a cheap like kids toy like design element, you know?
uh-huh. Yeah.
Um
No,
it's
you
just
know me. I don't like like kind of design too.
yeah, yeah, it feels a little out of place.
But
They
in
could
just
have done that a little
yeah.
bit more beautifully, in
Can
my
we
opinion.
bring up just for one second, can we bring up the last year's AlphaTauri car real quick?
Sure, we can do the 2022 Alpha Tauri.
Was that it?
Yeah,
Can you enlarge?
not from Sky Sports apparently. Here, let's do. Okay,
What
really,
is
Scuderia
this?
AlphaTauri?
There we go. See, wait, this is not the actual car, but
Here, huh?
but let me just use that
Uh,
track.
yeah, this image.
Yeah, let's just use this image.
Yeah.
See, one thing I like about AlphaTauri is that everything is so cohesive. Like the design, the car,
Mm,
like everything is so like rounded and everything looks right. But in the new
yeah.
AlphaTauri, for some reason, it feels a little bit like the elements doesn't go together that well. Like that, you got hard edges, you got rounded edges, you got or
Mm.
maybe because that livery is just throwing me off.
I think it's the red highlights that are definitely throwing you
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
For me, again, like, okay, if they're gonna do the Orlin logo here, why just make it a red bar that stops partway through the wing?
yeah,
Why not make it red all the way
all the way through.
through
Yeah,
and then maybe fade as it gets around the corners,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Same thing with the Orlin here. Why
yeah.
not
That part is
extend it,
yeah,
and then
like
fade
extend it.
into the
Yep,
blue,
yep.
right?
It's too
Uh,
harsh. The point,
yeah,
the
yeah,
shape is just too harsh, and it kind of throw up the balance of the livery and the whole car. Because if you look at
yeah,
AlphaTauri, their car is like it's not like aggressive, sharp, pointy edges. Their car actually feels smooth. Their car actually feels like it can
yeah,
go through air quickly because of the
yeah.
smoothness of the surface. But the livery gives you an illusion of the car can go very slow. That's terrible.
It's funny though because when I look at like the 2022 car like livery, I hated it just
Mhm.
because there was no third read element
Yeah,
in it,
yeah,
right? And that's something that I can say for the red here is it's giving me that like third read element. Okay, I'm seeing the white, I'm seeing the dark blue, and then I'm seeing the red as like, a nice pomp, a nice
mhm,
variation in the aesthetic.
yeah,
Whereas like before, you're just seeing the blue and the white,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so personally, I don't mind the red. It just
It's just the shape of
would
that
be
red.
it would have
It's
been better. It
yeah,
could have been better integrated,
yeah.
right?
One
And
thing,
that's why I brought up
mm,
like this guy because when you look at like the wipeout stuff, it was a lot of very like stark, hard edges, and like that's where I see the similarity between them.
one thing that I
That's
got to
that's just
say,
me.
I think I know why the red is the red that shape like that is because the brand of Orion, they might in their rulebook of branding identity
Yeah,
rulebook,
maybe hard
maybe
edge.
it's a
Yeah,
rectangular shape that
yeah,
they need to use throughout the whole branding and cooperation standpoint. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so AlphaTauri doesn't have any choice but to use that rectangle shape
yeah, yeah,
because
exactly.
in the design in the branding you like Sheriff knows in the branding we
Yeah,
used to we all usually have that rule book, the brand guideline. Yeah, that's
yeah,
the key brand guideline, and in there everything is so stricted to the point where the shape of the color and the shape behind the logo has to be restricted, has to be
yeah,
guided, so that it doesn't go through, so that it doesn't throughout the whole branding identity when you partner with others, and that's
yeah,
probably why it's like that here.
yeah, most definitely. I mean, now here's a good question for you, McLaren. Let's get a yeah. There we go. McLaren's new car, new livery, and I'm talking
Mhm,
about the whole package. Okay,
mhm.
not just livery. Which are you liking more, the
I like the
AlphaTauri or
McLaren.
the McLaren?
I like the
Really?
McLaren. Yeah, I like the McLaren a lot more.
I like the AlphaTauri more.
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie. It's
I mean, at
it's
least we
the
have two
sleek.
different tests in the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
channel.
yeah. For me, it's a little bit of the sleekness of the
Mhm.
shapes of the AlphaTauri and their new like aero package,
Yeah.
and the sort of bright the poppy contrast.
Mhm.
But I will say the McLaren flows
I
more,
like
you
I
know.
like how crazy the McLaren look because we used to say
Mm,
like we remember we went to Peterson Museum, we see Alonso's
yeah,
car.
yeah,
That feels
yeah.
like an alien, and
It's true.
that kind of gives me the vibe here, and which I like.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely McLaren is doing some interesting new things
Yeah.
with this aero package.
Yeah.
As we went over,
Oh,
these new sort of
yep.
like
That.
dips in the intake,
Yeah.
the way they've taken their approach to the front wing elements,
Mhm.
the new sort of like hot tub side pods, even that we're
Me
seeing
top side
here.
pod.
Yeah, man. Like they're definitely doing some new things with this aero package that
One thing though, so
huh.
McLaren is using the pour-up system in the front.
Hmm.
What's the AlphaTauri? Are they using the pour-up as well? Because I know Red Bull is using pour-up.
Let's see.
No, they are using push-up. So they don't
Yeah,
have. So one thing the reason why I ask is because I don't know how much Red Bull and AlphaTauri is data sharing. So Red Bull is using pour-up, AlphaTauri is using push-rod. So maybe that's how they gather data because they are
yeah,
sister team. So
yeah. So it should be interesting. I mean, especially considering that these two teams may be battling this
yeah,
season, you know?
midfield. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely going to be very curious to see how Renault is going to set up their car now,
yeah, and also
in this
the
category.
and also we have Aston Martin coming up in around 11 o'clock. So stay tuned with
Oh,
us in 1 hour, and also Mercedes coming up the 15th.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and Renault is Alpine is coming up the 16th. So we got a busy week
Hmm.
going through. But one thing
Yeah, we
I got to
seriously
say
do.
is that the engine cover looks very similar throughout the field too, right?
Yeah, well, it seems that like the engine cover area and the rear axle area, I haven't seen a team yet that hasn't taken a new approach to sculpting it
Yeah,
versus previously, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um, so that for me is very exciting because it's telling me that they're really starting to master the new formula.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
yeah, okay, we can say the front wings are different, but that we knew that was part of the regs, right?
Yeah.
But the floor seems to be different with every team, and the engine cover and the rear axle sort of area all
Hmm.
seems to be getting treatment from each of the
Right.
teams so far. You know, uh, so I'm very curious to see how that's going to affect the individual performance of the teams, but also how it's going to affect following.
Mm.
You know, like
I
are
mean,
they?
they are promising a closer wheel to wheel. Ever
Dude,
since 2021, man. Beginning
no,
of
no, but
2021,
if we're really honest, last year,
we have a
despite
lot.
our criticism, there was more wheel to wheel
Yeah,
racing last
yeah,
year, especially if you look at the midfield, you
yeah.
know, than there has been in a long time.
Right,
You know,
right.
sure, there's always a couple of teams who kind of run away from the rest of the pack, right? But the new formula did deliver on that. I can't
Hmm.
necessarily argue.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
One one
hopefully,
thing is, I want to see how the purposing issue can be solved in
yeah.
every
Well,
team. Yeah, so
fingers crossed that no team is showing any new porpoising. Really,
hopefully the
like,
Mercedes is the
yeah.
worst last season. So actually, I'm pretty excited for Mercedes, but I heard a rumor says Mercedes doesn't have that much of a difference in terms of the shape of the car, but on the body and the package has a big
Well,
difference.
I think that that's really for Mercedes. That was what needed to be addressed,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Uh, and that's what they spent. I mean, if you think about their performance over the course of last season, they really spent 2/3 of last season
Yeah,
trying to
trying to
resolve
figure
those
out.
issues,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And they got to a point by the end of the season, by the last third of the season, essentially, where they had figured it out well enough to get them in contention for the podium
Yeah,
positions.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't think that they necessarily need to uh
Change.
yeah, to revise it in the sense of that, what they really need to do is work on the aero package a bit in order for them to be able to get the best out of the engine,
Hmm.
right?
And
Because that's the thing. Their
yeah,
engine in comparison to
it's
Ferrari or
slow.
Red Bull was slow.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I don't know
and
if that's due to drag
I th-
or what.
or even the reliability. They give up performance for reliability, but if they can
Yeah,
tune down the reliability and push more power, then
exactly.
so yeah.
Exactly. But listen, let's cut it off there. We're gonna be back live
In one
within
hour,
yeah, in
yeah,
1 hour.
59
So
minutes
yeah,
actually.
exactly. So why don't you guys go take a break, grab some coffee for yourselves.
I need
That's
to
what
go
I'm
grab
gonna
some
definitely
coffee.
do.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back, for the next F1 car debut. All right. We'll see you
See
then.
you in a bit.